Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Disassembling, now Reassembling, the Monroe calculator, Model K. We finished last time putting together the carriage. Just one tiny little note, and that is that the large digit wheel was able to move back and forth quite a bit. So the key, and as well the small digit wheel, the key there was to align this gear with this, and the same thing on the other side, this gear with that. So getting them aligned perfectly made the mechanism work much smoother. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I took the crank off because I am going to 3D model the plastic part that was on there because it was damaged. So that was the carriage. So now we're stepping backwards. We actually went backwards through, I think, video 13. That's when we first started taking apart the carriage. We're now reversing the process of video 12. At the end of video 12, I had taken off all the parts on this end of this thing. So what I did was I took some industrial cleaner slash toluene, and I basically took a toothbrush and I brushed this thing. It was a little more difficult because I didn't actually take all of these parts off. I didn't really feel like it. I cleaned also all of these small parts to get them free of their disgusting grease. So now the next thing to do is oil all the parts, and also make sure that I know what orientation all of these parts are in. And I had a look at the video, and I looked at it very carefully, and I determined what the orientation of the parts should be. So basically, this part goes in like this. There's a little sort of thing on this side that goes on towards the inside. Then there is this washer that goes on top of it, and then there is this part. Now, if you notice, there's this little dot here, and there are two dots here. This dot goes between the two dots, so that when they rotate, they can only rotate so far, like that. This whole assembly goes on to here, like this, and if you orient this part so that you get this notch at the bottom, this notch at the top, that goes pretty much in the center of this. So that when I put this on, basically it should look like, it's a little hard to get on because it hasn't been oiled, but basically it should go on just like that. And that's fixed using a taper pin. Then this ring goes on like that, and then this final sort of a cranky thing goes on, and this part here aligns with the bottom little notch. So it would basically go on like that, and it's really hard to get on because I haven't really oiled anything yet. So I'm going to do that now. So obviously I'm going to want to oil all of these parts, but first let me get this part on. So I'm going to take the oiler, and I still have oil. It tends to last quite a long time. You don't really need much. So let's see. So the first part that goes on is this part. So I'm just going to put some oil in the middle of it. And then just sort of run it around a little bit. So there's that surface, because that's going to be a rotating surface. Should I oil anything here? No, probably not. So I just stick that on like that. Okay, just rotate it a bit to distribute the oil. Maybe put some more oil in the junction. There. Okay, very nice. Now it spins pretty freely. Okay, So that's the first part. Let's see what goes on next. The washer. The washer, it's not really a rotational part, but it could rotate. There's nothing fixing it in place, which means that I'm just going to oil the surface on which it sits on the axle. And I'm going to just put that right on there, distribute the oil, and good to go. All right. The next part is this. This is fixed using a taper pin, so I don't actually need to oil the inside of this part. This little dot is probably going to scrape back and forth like this. In addition, this surface over here is going to be contacting this washer, which may or may not rotate. So I'm going to put some oil around here. I'm also going to put some oil inside just to make it easier to put on. Okay, and we said that this is oriented like this. There we go. See how easy it goes on? It also has to go between, this dot has to go between the other two dots, so I just want to make sure that I get that oriented properly. Perfect. And then there was this taper pin. Now, when we did this before, we ruined the previous taper pin to take it out, and we ground a new tapered hole. So we know that this is going to go in quite nicely. So I did that, and what I'm going to have to do is cut off this side, the small side of the taper pin. You don't want to cut off the big side because, number one, that will tell you what the big side is. And number two, it's a lot easier to get the taper pin out if it's actually cut flush with the part, or relatively flush, because then you can just take, you know, whatever size pin punch you need, and you can apply force to the end of the taper pin without risking the taper pin sort of bulging out because of the force. And of course, when it bulges out, you're not going to be able to get the taper pin out. So that's one of the other things, is that throughout this entire machine, when I've been taking the taper pins out, I've been I don't think I've been doing it the right way. I think I've gotten a lot of experience in taking taper pins out. So the first thing that I would do in taking a taper pin out is just get that small end flush. I would even get, if I wanted to sacrifice the taper pin, I'd even get the large end flush. No, why would I do that? Maybe because I don't know which end is the large and which end is the small. Assuming I knew which end was the small end, I would cut that flush. Then I would use a heat gun, and then the freezing spray, and then the heat gun and the freezing spray several times. Then I would choose the correct pin punch diameter, and now that I have a whole bunch, it's a lot easier to do that. Okay, so that's enough of that. So the next step would be putting this on, and then putting this on, and let's see. Yeah, I can do that, and then I can remove the small end of the taper pin, so I don't have to do the taper pin now. So what I'm going to do is take this ring and oil it, because there is nothing holding it in place like a taper pin. So I've got the inner surface thoroughly oiled, and now it just goes on and spins very nicely. And now this, again, it's fixed, but I'm going to oil the inside anyway to make it easy to put on. And again, we determined that the orientation of the parts should be like this. And then I put this on, just like that. Now I have to align the holes. Have I aligned the holes? I'm trying to see. Where is the hole? I'm just using the light to orient this properly so that I can see through the hole. All right, I think that's about right. It's not, it doesn't go in all the way, so there is some room here, but yeah, now the holes are aligned. So I can see immediately that this end over here is the big end. This is the original taper pin, which has not been damaged, so I'm just going to put that in. And then we're going to knock these taper pins in a little more, cut off the end of that, and we should be good to go with this, with the exception of oiling all the inner parts, which I don't really have to show you on camera, but nevertheless, that's going to be that part. So, and that was about halfway through video 12. So that's pretty good. Here's the next part. This is basically covered by, I think, video episode 10 and the first half of episode 11. So again, moving backwards, this wheel, this axle, I've laid out the parts here in the order that they will go onto, actually, it should probably be like this, in the order that they will actually go onto the axle. Again, by looking at the video carefully and determining the order, orientation, and where there are different parts, making sure that I know which is which. So I have cleaned this using the toluene. Again, I have not oiled it yet, although I will shortly. So the idea behind this, again, is that we've got these keyed washers. This is a washer, and it has a little key in it, and the key fits in this keyway in the axle. I really don't know what that, there's a little hole at the top. I have no idea what that hole is for. But in any case, this fits exactly inside this gear. So this is going to rotate, therefore that surface will need to be oiled. Then these are basically the spacers. They don't rotate, they also have a key, so they just fit right on. They don't rotate, so, but we're going to oil the inside to make it easy to insert onto the axle. So that's this side. Up until this part, which is the split version with a set screw on it. So that goes on the end. And then this is the rod which fits right into this end hole here, which then connects to another part. So I'm going to leave that till last. On the other side of the axle, we have, again, this pointy gear, and then a spacer, and then we have a rounded gear. This is rounded. And then we have some sort of a cam, which is taper pinned in. It goes on the end in this orientation. So there's the taper pin. Then we have another gear with a kind of integral washer. It's a pointy gear, and it goes washer side this way. Then we have a washer, and then we have this double gear along with its screw. One of the gears is pointy, one of the gears is rounded, and I checked, and the rounded gear goes inside. I'm not really sure of the purpose of these rounded gears versus the pointy gears, but I guess we'll sort of figure that out when we put the whole thing together. Before I cleaned this thing, I thoroughly oiled this part. Basically, you separate each of these things and you oil the ribs on the inside, and now these are really, really smooth. These go extremely smoothly, so I don't think there will be really any problem with the keyboard. I might want to do a second round of oiling just for fun, but it's really, really responsive, and it snaps back immediately. which means that this part is pretty good to go. So we're going to do the same thing with this. We're going to put it together, oiling along the way, and hopefully, everything should end up very smooth. So let's begin by taking this guy. So because I cleaned the axle, I should just be able to slide this in very easily. I may be wrong in that, so we shall see. The end is always going to be a bit of a problem. Getting it on the end, so there we go, and yeah, see, it slides pretty much right on. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some oil the surface of that along with the face of this spacer. Let's see, do I have enough oil left? I think I do. So now I'm just going to put the pointy gear on, and it should move very nice and smoothly, which it does. And I think that the washer is just slightly bigger. Well, it has to be. It has to be just slightly thicker than the gear itself, because once we put the other spacer in, obviously if the spacer is tight up against the bearing, the gear wouldn't move. So, okay, so I said that I was going to oil the inside of this to make it easy. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of oil and then just a drop of oil on the key itself, because that's going to drag along the keyway. So I'm going to orient this properly. The thick end goes outside like that, and then I just put it on. Again, the end is always a pain. Really, the end should be beveled to make it easy to go on, but there you go. So now that this is tight, you can see that this gear spins quite nicely. Let me back that out and put some oil on the face, because when the gear turns, it may rub up against that surface. So there we go. Nice and clear. Okay, so basically I'll do the same thing for this. This would be a good point for 10 times speed. Okay, so that's this section. I've just about run out of oil, so I'm going to stop here. And I guess when I come in the next time, I should really bring in my big bottle of oil so that I can refill this whenever I need to. But I've got this section of the axle done. All the wheels spin completely without any, friction. Some with minimal friction. I have not yet tightened this because I'm not entirely certain whether this last part actually moved on me or not at any point. I don't think it did, but it's clear that there isn't anything holding this onto the axle relative to each other, which means that this whole thing could slide back and forth. So it's important for me to figure out where these things should be relative to the end of the axle. I suspect that this probably didn't move, which means I'm probably good. So So I'm just going to leave this as is. This part I will do next time when I have more oil. Let's see, do I really? Well, I do have some oil, so let me just finish up. Okay, so that's all for today. This is that axle done. I'm going to just tighten the set screw and make sure that this doesn't exactly look like it goes on like that, so I'm going to double check that, but that should be that. So until next time, see ya.